So this is a lot more of a low-key trade update. In fact, you can say it either means the world or potentially even nothing at all. I also do know that the Montreal Canadiens are playing right now. No Patty Laine, no David Savard. It's going to be a weird game. It's also against Chicago, so Colton Dach is making his debut. I, for one, am kind of upset because Chicago is missing out on Connor Murphy. I picked up him in my Bangers League because he gets a lot of blocks and he's pretty good. But nah, he's out of the lineup for tonight. Unfortunate. But either way, today we are talking about the Vancouver Canucks, and we're talking about the Montreal Canadiens. And you could be wondering to yourself, why? How is there a link between these two teams, and what in the world do the Bruins, the Utah Hockey Club, and the Penguins have to do with this? Well, I wanted to refer to a tweet made by David Pagnotta from earlier this afternoon. It goes over a tweet made by Anthony Marcotte. Interesting. Kyle Dubas, the Penguins GM, Bill Armstrong, the Utah GM, and Don Sweeney, the Boston GM, are all scheduled to attend today's Laval versus Abbotsford AHL game tonight. Of course, the Rocket is the Go Habs Go affiliate, but more interesting, Abbotsford is the Canucks affiliate. And there are a lot of people who have gone out there and started to run wild and speculate with this tweet. What could the Penguins, the Bruins, and the Utah Hockey Club be cooking if they're going out there and scouting Montreal and Vancouver prospects? Well, this would be a little bit of an easier explanation to make if you just kind of look around the league, at least for 2 out of these 3 teams. You see, there are only 5 games in the NHL right now. Pittsburgh, Florida, Ottawa, St. Louis, Montreal, Chicago, Anaheim, Edmonton, and Nashville, Vancouver. My question is, what in the world is Kyle Dubas doing going out there and watching Laval and Abbotsford instead of watching his own team play off against Florida? This might not be all too ridiculous when you consider yesterday Steve Yzerman was at the Team Canada defeat at the hands of Team Czechia. You know who also played yesterday? The Detroit Red Wings. So maybe it isn't really all too big of a deal for a GM to go out there and miss a game of their squad. But I did find it intriguing how Kyle Dubas, instead of watching the World Juniors like Steve Yzerman was yesterday, Kyle Dubas is watching Abbotsford Laval instead of his own team. That is very, very intriguing. I kind of wonder, what is Kyle Dubas looking for? We have heard a lot of rumors about Chris Letang going over to Montreal in some sort of a capacity. We have talked about the idea of Erik Karlsson as well. Could Kyle Dubas be looking at Laval, thinking about a guy like Logan Mailloux, for example? Hey, we got to watch this guy. We got to see what he's about. We got to do in-person scouting to verify if the player that we're seeing on the stat sheet is the player that we would actually be getting. There's usually a small window where you can feel these things coming to fruition. And for Kyle Dubas, if he's watching Laval, if he's also watching Abbotsford, I do wonder if there is some sort of a Vancouver angle that Pittsburgh could attack. All the Vancouver Penguins trade rumors we have seen over the past little while have revolved around Nils Höglander, JT Miller, and Marcus Pettersson. None of whom, of course, are going to be playing in this Abbotsford-Laval game. And also, interestingly enough, the best Canucks defensive prospect, Tom Willander, isn't here either. He's actually playing for Team Sweden at the World Juniors. So if you assume Kyle Dubas is watching this Abbey-Laval game because he wants to pay attention to the Abbey guys, then that does become a lot more interesting. There are some extra dudes on the Abbotsford Canucks that would be seen as interesting to acquire in a trade. I mean, Chet Wu is there, but obviously he's probably not too big of a target. Christian Wolanin, same thing. Actually, I don't know. Maybe if the Penguins want more of a veteran defenseman who can do really good offensive things, maybe Wolanin is your guy, but still, it's not really the most incredible mainstay dude. If you want to talk about some of the other teams here, Bill Armstrong watching Abbey versus Laval, I do wonder what the Utah Hockey Club are cooking. They've been pretty good this season, admittedly. They're a young team. They've been growing through some pains. They've been learning lessons. They've been scoring goals. A lot's going on with the Utah Hockey Club in a very positive way. They were in the hunt for defensemen earlier in the season, but they did what they needed to do to fix that. They got Sergachev. They got Olimata. They got Marino. Sure, the health of some of these guys isn't necessarily up to snuff, but still, the team is set. I'm interested in seeing what kind of prospects or guys they would be interested in from Vancouver or Montreal, and could this result in some sort of a Utah trade with Vancouver or Montreal? I'm a Canucks fan, so please give me back Dylan Guenther. I would love to see that guy suit up in a Vancouver Canucks jersey because he already would be one of the best goal scorers on the team at the ripe old age of 21 or whatever it is that he is. Anyways, you also wanted to talk about the other team scouting these guys. It is the Boston Bruins. Don Sweeney live watching Laval versus Abbotsford. I do wonder if there is even a likelihood that Boston is looking at this game because they're scouting Montreal players. Are they interested in making a Montreal Canadiens trade? They need another center. Are they going to go after Jake Evans or something? I'm not too sure. There are some good young centers that Montreal has in their farm system, so if Boston is looking for some prospects, some youth to help them out longer term, that definitely would be an area that they could address with this team. But I'm not too sure if Boston and Montreal would be too keen on making any sort of a move with each other. When it comes to Boston and Vancouver, though, we have seen some ideas tossed out there from the trade side of things. Nikita Zadorov, could the Canucks want him back, etc., etc. Elias Lindholm, I think, is pretty immovable in his spot in Boston right now. You can talk about all you want. The swappings of Jake DeBrusk, Forbort, Danton Heinen, and then Lindholm and Zadorov, but still, Boston has been slowly coming back to form here, slowly getting back to their identity of last season. Jeremy Swayman has fixed himself up relatively all right. I mean, he's not as good as he was last year still, and I say that as a guy who already dropped him in fantasy because thank goodness Yahoo took him off the can't cut list, but I don't know, I'm feeling kind of guilty about it because right after I dropped Swayman, he got picked up on waivers really quickly. So I'm like, yeah, did I make a mistake or did I just make an emotional dropping of the player because he was so dog water terrible for the first half of the year? Nah, I'm going to go with my gut. I think it was okay. But anyways, Jeremy Swayman, Boston Bruins, they've been slowly getting back up to speed here. If the Boston Bruins are looking to bolster up their team's young core, then maybe somebody in this Laval and Abbey game is of interest. Again, the top Canucks prospects are not really playing. Tom Villander's at the World Juniors. Lekaramaki is there, sure. Maybe Utah or Pittsburgh or Boston is looking for a nice young Swedish goal scorer. Lekaramaki would be their guy. But then again, what would these teams offer to Vancouver? For Pittsburgh, you're thinking about Marcus Pettersson. That trade is a little bit lopsided. Pittsburgh would be winning quite heavily, in my opinion. For Boston, you might be talking about a defenseman. You might be talking about somebody else. Maybe Trent Frederick is somebody that the Bruins are dangling in front of Patrick Allvin's face once again. And then for the Utah Hockey Club, I have no idea whom it is the hockey club in Utah would offer to Vancouver in some sort of a trade. Maybe Utah's only in there just because they're scouting Montreal guys. Maybe they're looking at Owen Beck. Maybe they're looking at Mailloux. Maybe they're looking at, I don't know, Philip Mayshar or whomever else. Maybe these teams are just interested in Laval prospects and the Vancouver guys happen to be there too. So I want you to let me know your ideas in the comment section below. How do you feel about this entire undercover secret trade update between the Vancouver Canucks and the Montreal Canadiens? Utah, Boston, Pittsburgh, they're all in the building watching Abbotsford versus Laval. How interesting is that? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.